Good evening, everyone. And for those for whom it is morning or afternoon, I hope it is good. Welcome to the final day of AVPN's first South Asia Impact Capital Festival. I'm Patricia Matthias, head of the gender platform at AVPN, and I'm delighted to have you join us today. For those of you who do not know about AVPN, we are a network of funders and resource providers with over 600 members across 32 markets. Our mission is to move more capital towards impact in Asia by providing social investors like yourselves opportunities to connect with key stakeholders across various sectors and markets, to learn from one another, and to find opportunities for action. We are also sharing highlights of our day live on Twitter, so don't forget to share your experience with us by using the hashtags #AVPN South Asia 2021 and #Social Impact. Throughout this month, the festival has put a spotlight on best practices and solutions that AVPN members are delivering across India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. They addressed issues ranging from healthcare, livelihoods, climate action, and education, which are all of particular urgency for the sub-region today. A few housekeeping announcements before we get into the program. To download any session resources, please click on the download icon in the agenda page beside the session title. Our partners have set up virtual booths with useful guides and resources. Please click on the Festival Partners tab to chat with the relevant partner representatives. To continue chatting with your speaker and fellow delegates in the session, please make full use of the messaging function or the event feed in the platform. And finally, please note that this session will be recorded and you will be able to access the recordings after the festival. It has been a marathon month for us. And we close today with our final session on education issues that range from digital revolutionization to education, to innovative finance instruments, to enable better educational outcomes. To start off the day, I'm pleased to invite Alison Hollowell, Chief Product Officer at AVPN. Ali will be speaking with Pratima Harite, Head CSR and Philanthropy, Pacific from the Lenovo Foundation. Ali, over to you.
Thank you, Pat, and welcome, Pratima. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. I'm really excited to actually talk more about the Lenovo Foundation and the work that you all have been doing, especially over the last year, as it relates to bridging the digital divide for education. So I'd love to ask, as a way to kick off, if we can set the stage a little bit. You have a bird's eye view of what's happening in the EdTech space. And many of us have seen firsthand the impact that COVID-19 has had on education for our kids. But I'd love to hear from you as to what you're seeing in terms of trends, especially forward-looking of what we can expect the role of technology in education to be.
Thank you, Alison, and thank you, Pat, too, for the introduction. For those of you who don't know much about Lenovo Foundation, Lenovo Foundation is a US-based entity and the philanthropic arm of Lenovo India. Our strategic intent is to provide technology, empower people and underserved communities with technology and STEM education. Going back to your question, Alison, at the time when COVID hit us in March of last year, we saw schools, colleges, institutions just shutting down, and that affected us all over the world. We have our presence in 5 geographies of Lenovo footprint, and it was felt mostly in Asia Pacific as well. I remember when we began initially, and most of our programs in India, especially in South Asia and in Asia Pacific, are related to STEM education. And schools just shutting down created chaos for everybody. There was this run up to look for devices when schools shut down and online education began, and everybody wanted devices. initially, I think the first 3 or 4 months, it was just we would have calls every second day for devices to come in. Um, and then I think way back in around July 2020, when kind of we realized that the digital divide is there and it is specific around devices, we also asked ourselves what's new. And then we need to see what kind of trending was it going to take towards. And a study came out in July 2020, which was by Lenovo, and it looked at, so this was based on a survey that was done with educators, and 28% of the educators felt that the budgets would fall from 10 to 20%, and 22% of our respondents felt that there would be a bigger drop in the digital in the budgets towards digital transformation by about 20 to 49% in 2022. And given that kind of a scenario, institutions would need to rethink the future strategies. So look at it from this perspective. Digitization was always there for social enterprises to think of, but it was not really top of mind priority. If we had 10 priorities, probably it would have been the sixth or the seventh priority. But with COVID-19, there was a trajectory, and there came upfront the need to get into a digital transformation. But that was phase one. Once you have looked at the digital transformation, which was basically getting the devices in, the need to rely on the other kind of transformations, which is related to content being readily available, content that gets updated, and then having learning management systems. Because as you go online, you would need to have management systems that will help you track the information that's coming in. So you will naturally see a shift from phase one, where you had devices, need for devices, to a phase two, where you would feel the need to bring in more solutions that were looking at management systems or ability to rotate the devices and not bring in new devices into the ecosystem. Um, Lenovo also believes that in the current surge of distance learning, there will be long term effects on education worldwide. Um, Technology currently is will change the dynamics of education. It's no longer going to be a classroom or an infrastructure based education. Um, Educators will move into digital strategies, and they'll have to move quickly. And when we looked at this and we saw these trends happening, Lenovo started partnering with industry leaders and started developing hardware, softwares, and services which would be solutions that are suitable for educational institutions. Idea was not just to say that we will build devices, but also offer solutions that would kind of address the demands of blended learning that the institutions would need in the educational transformation journey. So that's the kind of trends that we are seeing: rapid digital transformation, and need to have solutions that are veering towards more around learning management systems.
Right. And I remember you saying something to me about the teachers really needing to be better equipped for this. Can you speak to that?
Yes, this is a personal view, but as I talk to the teachers, I realize that is a lot of the educators would not have been in an era when digitization was there.
Mm,
Digitization has come in maybe in the last decade or so, but a lot of our educators have put in over a decade of work into their teaching. To upskill them, you need to move them forward into a space where they will be able to use digitization. I mean, take me for example. I work in a corporate scenario. Um, and I have been on the computer for the last 20 years or so. But things change so rapidly. I mean, you have SharePoint as the intranet, you have different systems that are coming up, Teams that has come up today.
mm,
So you need to be constantly upgrading and upskilling yourself. You'll
yeah.
see the same need for educators as well. And keeping that in mind, we support an organization called Meghshala in India that works with upskilling and training teachers on the use of digitized content and taking them to the classrooms. Meghshala was set up by a retired school teacher who felt the need to be able to provide content to teachers on a regular basis, that could complement not just the teachers teaching, but also complementing the classroom teaching that was happening. So Meghshala is one organization that we work with that works in upskilling educators. Another organization that we work with is Agastya Foundation, which looks at developing the curiosity of children using experiential learning. If I was to look to my school days, and for most of us, a Pythagoras theorem would be something that we would have done by rote.
Mm.
Agastya Foundation works on models that are developed where a child is able to visually and experience and understand how a Pythagoras theorem actually works, or simply just the solar system. We would have looked at pictures and learned that a Jupiter or a Saturn is here and there around the sun. But imagine a scenario where a child comes into a classroom and is actually able to see the model of the sun and the planets revolving around it. The power of visual recall is far more stronger, and the experiential learning is far more stronger than what you would have done in the classroom by the teacher.
Mm.
So I think those are the other elements of upskilling that we can provide, that Lenovo continues to provide to the educators. And basis that, we feel that we have the capacity to also build their digital upskilling. One other initiative that we are now adopting is to work with teachers in providing them digital training. Teachers may know how to operate a Google Meet or a Microsoft Teams or a Zoom, but how can we involve them further to be able to use Excel and PowerPoint as their means of being able to conduct a classroom? So
Wow.
that's the kind of upskilling. They're simple methods, but they are upskillings that we would like to provide to the educators on an ongoing basis, not just a one off and leave it, but continue to have it, because only when you keep retraining and retraining will you be able to upskill them.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So, I mean, I think, and you've already started giving some excellent examples here. But the next thing I was going to ask you actually is if you can go a bit more into some of the learnings that you've had over the last year, and just sort of the best practice for integrating technology into education, and share some of your work, particularly around how this is impacting vulnerable communities.
So I already spoke to you about Meghshala,
Yeah.
but I think when it comes to learnings, probably I will share an example with you specifically from Meghshala itself. When we began the year last year, we were working with them on a project in the northeast state of Meghalaya. The northeast states in India are very hilly regions. Schools are pretty much in the interiors. And when the school shut down, sorry, the general feel that we had was that it was going to be difficult that to even take the program forward in the schools if the teachers and the students were not in the classroom. So we sat back with Meghshala and said, okay, how do we build this? So we actually used the time to train the Department of Education people. So there were people on the ground who were district block officers. We trained them about the application, got them to understand how the program actually works, how the application works, and how it could be taken forward with the teachers. So we trained them first. So we had like a bunch of train the trainers already in place, so that when the schools reopened, we would have on the ground train the trainers who would be able to take it forward, even if we were not able to travel there, or make sure our program managers would not be able to travel there. So I think one of the learnings for us was to be able to be flexible within our programs and be able to to be on our feet and think through to say, if this is not going to work in the timelines that we were looking at, what would? So that was from the community side. Another example that I can give you is there's this organization called Doorstep School Mumbai. They work in the slum communities. So they had these buses that would go into the slum communities excuse me, the buses were made like schools, so there would be no benches or seats in the bus, but it was like a proper school with slates and small tables. But with COVID lockdown, buses were not allowed to go into the slum community. So what would you do there? And they reached out to us and said, we need to get digital, we need the devices. So we sat with them, reworked their budgets. uh, they needed Their need of the hour at that point of time was leveraging technology. So we reworked the entire program with them. We were funding them for the school bus, but we revisited the program, repurposed the funds, and said, okay, what you need is devices to take your digital program forward. Here's what we can give you. And that's how we brought it in. So again, like I said, flexibility and being able to repurpose, those were our key learnings when we were talking to the to our partners and trying to understand the needs of the communities. So there are such similar examples across. And I think most corporates would have these examples with them. I think everyone has gone through that stage of being able to understand what their partners require and how they would be able to satisfy them.
Right.
From a business perspective, I'll just take one more minute. I think from a business perspective, when it came to education, um, our business units also looked at, like I had mentioned earlier, trying to bring hardware, software into services solutions. So one of the other pieces that we were kind of cognizant of was the fact that there would be a need to build softwares that would help and ensure that children's safety, cybersecurity is assured. And you may excuse me because I am going to read out some of these names from a document that I have. I'm not a salesperson, so I don't have full knowledge of the product. So I'm actually reading out from a product list that I have. So we have something called Absolute. This is an endpoint security platform that will provide complete visibility and remote control of devices at scale. So this was something that was brought in by Lenovo as a solution. There's also something called Sentinel One. This is a next generation antivirus software that helps you proactively identify and block malicious activities. So if your child is using a laptop or a tablet, or a student is using that, you have a growing number of ransomware, malware, and phishing attacks that are happening. Sentinel One actually tries to dissuade that. FileWave. This is a management device program which helps to, it's a multi-platform and unified endpoint management system that provides complete client management capabilities for both Windows and OS computers. So basically what it means is if you have that system in a tablet, you'll be able to track the tablet, the device, and who and how the device is being used. Then we had Lightspeed Systems. This is an integrated LMS platform that has been developed for device and classroom management. It filters contents. It provides analytics that ensures student safety, monitors the students' usage of data and the attention, and it allows the teachers to make informed and data-driven decisions. Very different from what you would do in a classroom, because a classroom scenario allows the teacher to understand. I mean, simply from the body language, the teacher
Right.
would know whether the child is able to assimilate or no. And the last one is a buffer zone. Again, this is a security solution for LMS systems that adds a layer of protection to schools and colleges and in educational institutions.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's a great segue into my last question that I have for you, which is around the unique role that corporates play in this. And you've just already started kind of talking about the business implications, and that you as a technology company have a lot of know-how and expertise in this space that you bring to the conversation, but also and this I'm speaking more broadly to in terms of what you see as the role of corporates in general in this sort of technology and education space, because I think there's a unique opportunity that you have, not only to look at your financial contribution that you're giving grants and partnering with these NGOs that you were mentioning, but also leveraging the business skill set and also the employee base that you have as well. Do you want to speak a little bit more about that?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I did speak to you about this earlier also, to say that we have partnered with the technology leaders and our business partners as well, like Microsoft, Google, AMD, and Intel, the processor companies, to expand the portfolio of the smarter technology for all, which is our brand promise, to provide new form factors and innovative remote learning solutions. That is on the business side, but we also looked at engaging our employees to support the future of education. And we started it by very small things. For example, Meghshala, which I spoke to you about, provides content in vernacular languages. And there came a point of time when they wanted to expand into some of the Hindi speaking states and some of the regional states like Orissa and Chhattisgarh, and they were looking for translators. And it was an innocuous statement that Meghshala made to us, to say that, oh, we were looking to get some content translated in Hindi. And we said, Hindi is the national language. How difficult would it be for anyone to translate that? And so we moved that into an employee volunteering initiative. This was bang in the middle of lockdown. People were working from home. They didn't know what the future was going to look like. And we said, this is an opportunity for us to engage them, to let them know that there are communities who are facing much more. I mean, we have a roof over our head. We know 2 square meals are coming. What about those kids who don't have access to education simply because the content and the language is not there for them? And so we sent out an email communication, and we were surprised to see that employees loved participating in these initiatives. And at one point of time, we got employees reaching out to us and say, hey, my father's a retired teacher, or hey, my mom is 60, 70 years old. They would like to participate. And we that way we ended up converting the content, English content, for standard 5 and 8 from science, for science content, into Hindi. And now we are trying to see if we have employees whose mother tongues are either Oriya or any other language where Meghshala needs to convert it. Taking that as an example, Meghshala went out and did a crowdsourcing in the civil society, asking for volunteering support. Similarly, we had Lenovo Smarter Ed platform. Uh, while we were talking about employee volunteering, one of the things that came out was to say, can we engage the civil society as well? And from there came the birth of this platform. Basically, it looks at engaging the civil society. So people like you and me, who may not be working for Lenovo, but are retired teachers or have the ability to teach, or are homemakers who don't know what to do with their free time. There was a platform that we created early in April, which went live. And within the first 4 weeks of it going live, we had 15,000 individuals who registered as teachers, and
Wow.
11,000 students registered saying that they wanted tutoring support. So,
Wow.
so it was not just about engaging, on one hand the business, on the other hand the employees, but also trying to bring in the civil society into a larger cause of education and the digitization of transformation of that education system.
Fantastic. What an amazing story about the sort of the power of partnership and engaging the broader communities around you. That's really exciting. Well, we are nearing the end of our time together. So I just wanted to say thank you for sharing so candidly about everything that you're working on, and just kind of give a little bit of a summary of what I took away as two of the biggest things. The digital training for teachers and educators as they're moving into this blended learning long term, and I think that that's something that not a lot of us have wrapped our heads around, that we're not just going to go back to the way things used to be, that there really is going to be a new normal. And then I think the second thing for me was the need to be flexible and sort of nimble, particularly as you work with partners and as a funder. I think that that's something that we've we've definitely heard at AVPN is really critical, that the social sector is really needing those kinds of partners that are able to work with them through difficult times and just think about how they can transition a program that was meant to be in person to now being much more digital. And I know that you're doing some of that more broadly with NGOs as well. So that's excellent to hear. And then finally, just the power of partnership in general, and that, you know, you're using that influence as a corporate, not only with your capital, but also the people that are working for you, and then the communities around you. So I think those are some really good takeaways for everybody here tonight. And so thank you again for sharing. And if you had a final word, what would it be towards ed tech in South Asia?
I think expect change.
Yeah.
When you're looking at digital transformation, change is not constant. Change is here to happen, and it will just keep happening.
Yeah.
We just need to look forward to it.
Great. Well, thank you, Pratima. And back to you, Pat.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ali and Pratima. It was fascinating to hear how technology has transformed the education space and is driving impact. So thank you for those insights. We have now come to the end of the Fireside chat. This session was made possible with the kind support of our festival partners, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Sesame Workshop India, the Rockefeller Foundation, #COVID Action Collab, V&V Advisory Services LLP, the British Asian Trust, WPP India CSR Foundation, Catalyst Management Services Private Limited, and Sattva. To continue chatting with your speakers and fellow delegates in the session, please make full use of the messaging and meeting function on our festival platform. And please do share your insights of this session on social media. And remember to tag us using the hashtag AVPN South Asia 2021 and hashtag social impact. Up next, the Grandstand on Education will be starting at 4:25 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Thank you, and please enjoy the rest of the festival.